Murphy. Conor Murphy. What's happening, man?
What's up?
How? Moose asked me how I knew you, and I'm like, crap, I don't know when I first met you. It had to be through CrossFit and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So I think your now wife
Yeah.
is, because I don't know if you guys were married at the time, knew Rachel, my ex-wife.
Yeah.
But we were just dating at the time. And I think had done CrossFit together. And I think the first time I met you was at, what's that like CrossFit style brunch place in Framingham? But they also have some like gangster ass pancakes.
Oh, the diner. J&M.
Yeah.
J&M. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was the first time. And we had like sat down there. And then afterwards, probably typical for everyone that you meet. They're like, man, that guy's voice sounds familiar. And then Rachel was like, yeah, that's Ramiro. That's who you listen to on the morning show. And that was in like 2014, maybe 2015.
Oh, yeah, I definitely wasn't married at the time with Nicole. Damn. Okay, that's what it was. Because he asked me, he's like, how do you know him? I'm like, I know him. I just don't remember when we first met. Okay, beautiful. So, yeah, that's how. So, Conor, what he does, well, I don't know exactly what you do. I know you train celebrities and stuff like that. Like, you'll go on tour and train celebrities who are on tour. How the hell did that happen?
It's funny when you say, I don't know what you do, because depending on the conversation, someone's like, give me an elevator pitch. I mean, it changes every time. I don't really know exactly what I do. But to answer your question with the touring with celebrities, it kind of happened from a mutual friend that I met that I started giving programming to. He was a tour manager for hardcore bands. It was nothing really that I thought of that I really understood from like the touring or celebrity side. He then moved on to an artist, Dillon, who's a EDM, he's a DJ.
Hell yeah.
And I had never heard of him at the time. But of course, once you have a dog in the fight, you start listening to their music. You're like, oh, this is really, really cool. So I trained this guy, Mike Finn, tour manager for Dillon. And then I would go out on the road and I would train Mike, or I'd put him through a workout. And then that kind of raised the eyebrow of Dillon being like, oh, I want to give this a shot. I mean, he had personal trainers at, back in LA. They'd work out for like 2 hours at a time, and, they charge by the hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, Dillon, do you want to do a quick workout? And he was like, sure. And the workout was 75 air squats for time to a medicine ball. I had a medicine ball, went into Steve Aoki's green room, and put the medicine ball down. And I was like, okay, sit on that. Okay, cool. Now, rock back in your heels, drive your knees out, pull your chest up a little bit. Cool, now stand. Now do that. All right, cool. You're going to do that 75 times. But every minute on the minute, you're going to do 5 burpees. What's a burpee? Well, you're going to lay down and then you're going to stand back up. Like, that's it? That's it.
Yeah.
So, as you know how it goes, it's like 5 burpees. He's air squat, and he gets like 26 air squats first minute. Goes back down. He gets to like 50 in the second minute. I'm like, man, maybe I didn't make this hard enough. And then things start to slow down. He ended up finishing this workout in like 8 minutes. Didn't know which way was up, was laying on the ground, was exhausted. 20 minutes later, he comes back. He's like, I don't think I've ever felt better than I feel right now. And he was all excited about it. And the next day, he told Mike to message me. He's like, hey, man, I'm sore, but not like too sore where I can't move. And that workout was 8 minutes long. And whenever we do this next tour, I want you to come on board with us. And at the time, I'm just coaching CrossFit. I'm just training, your everyday athletes, trying to compete at the same time. And from there, it just got to the point we ended up doing a tour, and then other people noticed it. And then he had, significant fitness gains and mental and psychological. And it was, he got to the point where he's the best spot he's ever been in. And a lot of it is due to his work. It's like he hired the trainer, but that really encouraged him to do the right things. And from there, it's just been word of mouth back and forth, other people being like, oh, that's Dillon's trainer, back and forth. But I owe it all to Mike Finn, and then the work that we did with Dillon. From there, it's where it's kind of expanded.
That's so funny, the story, because that's how like 90% of people get into CrossFit is like they go, do this workout. It's going to take you 8 minutes, 10 minutes. And you're like, what? Oh, workouts in 10 minutes. What's that going to do to me? My first one was, it was Fight Gone Bad. I remember I used to always go to my friend at my old radio station. I'd come in to work and I'd be like, yo, this morning it would always be like a CrossFit type workout. I did this many pull-ups in 10 minutes. I did this and this. I did a ladder of this. And so then he joined CrossFit and he's like, dude, you got to come to CrossFit. And I said, nah, I don't want to do that. What was I doing at the time? There was a reason why there was an excuse I was giving for not going. Anyway, one day he finally dragged me to a class, and I did it, and I loved it. So I found one near my house. And how crazy is this story, okay? So at the time I lived in Southborough. It was one in Marlborough. And I walked in there, and the guy was like, well, I got to put you through a trial workout. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And it was Fight Gone Bad. And what's the Fight Gone Bad movements?
So you have wall ball, sumo deadlift high pull,
okay,
box jump, push press, and row.
So we didn't do the row. Instead, we did burpees. So it's like a minute of each or something,
yeah.
right? Okay, so he didn't have a rower. So instead, and it was me and another guy doing it. So we do the workout. In the middle of doing the workout, the other guy walks outside. And I'm like, this dude just leaving? Still working out. Came back a few minutes later. He looked like shit. Continued the workout. Went back outside again. He did it 3 times. And I guess each time he was going outside, he was throwing up. I didn't realize it. So anyway, did the workout. So I said to the guy, I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I loved it. Put me on my ass. I want to sign up. This is all going to wrap up in a crazy way. The owner of the CrossFit at the time said, I said to him, I said, I'm going on vacation next week, but let me sign up now. So when I come back from vacation, I could just start doing this. And he said, nah, don't sign up right now. I said, what do you mean don't sign up right now? He goes, you never know what's going to happen. Just when you come back from vacation, come in and sign up. And I said, no, but I just want to sign up now so I don't have to deal with the BS when I come back. And he goes, nah, you never know what's going to happen. You might get you just don't do it. Wait. All right, cool. Go on vacation. During that vacation, my ex-wife, I was still married to her at the time, she said, hey, there's another CrossFit that opened up in Southborough. I actually looked, so I looked now, I was Googling it, and distance-wise, the Marlborough one was actually closer, distance-wise, to my house. But I said, whatever, I'll give it a try. I ended up going to the Southborough one. I just liked the vibe a little bit better, so I joined that one. Soon after that, got divorced, and the wife that he was talking about, she was a coach at the Southborough one. So if that dude in Marlborough did what 99% of business owners would have done and been like, all right, dude, sign up right here. I'll see you after vacation. All those other things would have never happened because I would have been signed up to Marlborough. It's closer. I'm not even going to try this Southborough place. I wouldn't be with my beautiful wife right now. Isn't that crazy? That's a crazy story, huh?
I was going to say, yeah, it's weird how things just...
Yeah.
Based off one decision.
Freaking nuts. But anyway, going back to CrossFit, that's how people always hook you with the workouts. They tell you it's going to be this long. They tell you what it is. You're like, it's no big deal. Then it puts you on your ass. And the next thing you know, you're like, sign me up, I'm in. And then you do something that you've never done before. Like for me, it was probably a muscle up or something like that where you're kind of, you're doing things and, you're lifting a little heavier and stuff and all that shit is cool. But there's always like this one movement that people struggle with. And for me, I think it was a muscle up. The first time I saw someone do it, I'm like, I can't do that shit. I can do a pull up. I can do a dip, but I can't get myself over to do it. And a friend of mine was like, you can do it. And I said, no, I can't do that. And he basically showed me the technique of it. And when I did it, I was like, oh shit. Then you just get hooked doing it.
I've done it once. Not a muscle up. I've done CrossFit once.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where did you do it at?
It was in Revere. It was the preseason to lacrosse. I don't know why this one year my coach, I think he must have known the guy who owned the place, and he was like, all right, boys, we're doing CrossFit for our preseason. I was like, what the hell's that? I was like 17, I think, at the time, and oh my God, it was nuts.
Yeah.
It was fun, but it was a lot. It was like really a lot. I don't think 16, 17-year-olds should be.
Well, I think it's more...
Do teenagers do it? I was going to say.
Absolutely.
Really?
It's the coaching. I think if you have the right coach, like Conor's a good coach.
Okay, that's probably what happened.
And here's what I'll relate it to, because I can talk until I'm blue in the face and convince everyone that they're going to sign up for CrossFit when they finish. But you wouldn't disown religion because you went to a church you didn't like. It's just the way that they're administering it. It's like it's like what you realize at the core of CrossFit is really, really simple and a lot different than what people think it is. Some people think, oh, here's these 16, 17-year-olds. I got to crush them in this workout. And that's so often, maybe it's ego, maybe it's what people think that they need. But any idiot trainer, anyone can give someone a workout so hard that they can barely walk the next day. And I even hear it from, outside, different areas. Now with my company, now I work in all different areas of fitness, all different disciplines. People are like, oh, he's the best trainer. I couldn't walk for a week after training with him. And I'm like, that's negligence. It's the good trainer is realizing where someone is meeting someone where they're at, realizing what their goals are. And when I say where someone's at, that's physiologically and psychologically. A lot of people don't want that push. They don't want to have that super intense, workout. But if you're doing these movements that are natural in our lives, which we are training in CrossFit, and you're doing it at a relative intensity, you're going to be a little bit sore the next day. You're going to be challenged and pushed a little bit more so that we can increase our capacity and get better. That's the art of a good coach, is someone who can meet someone where they're at and then get them a little bit better every day. A great coach can take a room full of 10 people that are all at different stations, realize where they're at, coach them, not just, hey, here's your workout, go do it. That's the programming piece of it. But can you improve human movement in all of your athletes while they're in your class, get them 1% better at each and every movement they're doing so that over 100 workouts, now we're really gaining somewhere. Like, that's the art and beauty of coaching. Whereas some people are like, oh, I'm a CrossFit coach. We're going to do we're going to do Fight Gone Bad, but actually 3 times. You're going to rest 5 minutes in between there. And of course it's going to smash everyone. It's like, it's not like, hey, I'm the best coach for creating this. But that's not even what they preach at the level 1 and in any sort of it being like, hey, crush everyone into the ground. Though, as Ramiro will tell you, once you are fit, it doesn't get easier. You get to the point where you get to push harder and harder, and you get fit and you move really well. And then they say, okay, now you're going to go a little faster. Now you're going to add a little heavier. And so at the end of the day, you've been doing it for 10 years. I'm pushing harder on workouts now than I was ever capable of 10 years prior. But it's because you build up that capacity. Just doesn't get easier, which I wish it did. That'd be great, huh?
Yeah. And you got to think of it this way, too. You could have a dude in his 20s, right? Stud athlete. Next to a woman in her late 50s, starting out. They're doing I'm going to say same workout. Same workout. He's doing way more weight. At the end of this same workout, he crushes her in reps. He crushes her in weight. He finishes 5 minutes before her. She still might have had a better workout stimulus-wise relative to herself than him. If you compare just weights times all that bullshit, you're going to be like, this dude crushed her. But if you compare where she is, woman in her late 50s, maybe a grandmother, hasn't worked out in freaking 8 years, maybe in 20 years, versus this kid who comes in 5 times a week, plays football and all that shit, she's getting more of a workout for what she did compared to him.
It makes sense, yeah. It makes absolute sense.
And that's scaling, and that's relative intensity. And the art of scaling is what makes a coach to a good coach to a great coach to world class, is being able to scale someone in that. And then you talk about the psychological part of it. How can you relate to people that, if someone were to come into a gym and it was like, all right, Ramiro and Conor are coaching this class, and we got our shirts off, just looking all sorts of swole up. And someone comes in there that weighs 400 pounds and they're like, I can't do what they're doing. There's no relation. There's no vicarious experience that we have to that person. How can we relate to them? And that's what comes with experience and training and being a professional, but realizing that, hey, the same program him and I are on is going to get that person the results. And I'm working right now on my 8th. I mean, this sounds selfish, and sometimes training is, because you get, results for people or you help them get results. But I've got a guy right now, he's been training with me for 2 months. He's down 43 pounds, and we've got a 100-pound weight loss journey. He's doing the same program as everyone else that's coming in to train. It's just relative. You scale it, and kind of how you speak about it too is different. If you have that 60-year-old woman, who I have 6-year-old men and women who I train with all the time. When they're coming in, what I'm convincing them or how I'm telling them about the workout is a little bit different than, when Ramiro comes in and when you come in the gym. I'm like, all right, this one is, this one's going to suck. Here's what it's going to feel like. This is this piece of it. You're like, all right, this one is going to start off a little easier. That 60-pound or that 60-year-old. It's going to be a little easier. You're going to squat down to this. You're going to stand back up. As soon as we get to this movement, you kind of like guide them differently in it. It's almost like tricking people. Maybe I'm a little bit manipulative, but when you can get people to scale correctly, it's like that's what gets the results in it. And that's what, I've had the amazing opportunity to see and learn, beg, borrow, and steal from some of the best coaches in the world at it, to even be able to hold a candle to them. It's just like I'm taking all of their information on how they can relate to everyone.
Yeah. So let's go back to when you were like what got you into this in the first place? Like when you were a little kid, were you a big athlete or?
I played sports growing up.
Yeah.
I was decent. I mean, I was a good athlete as a kid. And when I got to high school, I just didn't have size. I didn't have strength. And then I had like a growth spurt my sophomore to junior year. So I'd be like tripping over my shoelaces and I felt really uncoordinated. But it really didn't start until I was in the Navy. And when I was going through training, I was going through special operations training in the Navy, and I knew I was behind from a physical standpoint. I could run and I could swim as good, if not faster, than anyone else in my class. The issue is that I mean, even just with strict pull-ups, I struggled to get our 6 or the 8 during the PST. And I had asked one of the instructors, Instructor McKinney, James McKinney, he's now one of my really, really good friend. And I was like, what can I do supplementing what we're already doing to continue to get better? Because I'm behind in this. And he was like, hey, I found a website that's actually got some really good workouts. It's called CrossFit.com. I want you to check it out. There was another guy who's in my class. His name was Billy Burnett. And this was one of the most intense guys I've ever met. Anything that you had a discussion with him was intense. And it was like, you see the whites in his eyes.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, like, dude, so you're doing CrossFit, we got to go. There's a rec gym, and we're going to do this workout. And I was like, okay. And he was a prior Army Ranger who was going through. And so we did this CrossFit workout. And I was like, oh, I'm not generally good at one specific thing. Like I wasn't good at deadlifting. I wasn't good at any of it. But I was like, okay at kind of doing everything. So with this first workout, he's like, oh, dude, you could do a pistol, like a one-legged squat. I was like, yeah, I guess I had the flexibility to do it, but I wasn't strong enough to do a bunch of them. So I found this thing, and I was lucky where I was like, hey, this is what they told me to supplement my training, and I'm actually kind of decent at it. And that's what really drove my passion towards CrossFit.
Yeah.
And then years later, I suffered an injury that kept me from doing my job in the Navy, which was a huge bummer at the time. But the only thing I had outside of that community was this community in CrossFit. And I felt like there were parallels because there were guys on base that I would train with. The strength coordinator down at NSW was this guy, Josh Everett, who's like an OG CrossFitter. And so when I was getting out, and it was like a battle, it was something where I felt like I had done so much to be in this spot. And then because dive officers said I would have issues with my elbows diving, they're like, oh, well, you can't do this anymore. I was like, well, what was all that effort? What was all that training for? And people were like vouching for me. So in a relatively dark place, the only thing I had was that I could still train. I could still go to a gym and have a community there.
Yeah.
So the Navy paid for me to do my level 1, or they had like put me in a position to, as I was transitioning out, I was going through the medical stuff to get out, put me in a position where I did my CrossFit level 1. And as much as I like to stay lighthearted on a bunch of stuff, I remember I took the test. It was on a Super Bowl Sunday. I think like the Green Bay Packers were in the Super Bowl. I don't exactly remember what year. But you took the test, and now it's a little bit different. Now you take the test, and then you do a Scantron, and then you figure out if you passed or failed a few days later. This one, you took the test. They graded your test, and then you went out to a desk or a table full of folders, and you opened your folder, and you had your level 1 certificate, or you had a certificate of participation. And I remember going out there like, I don't want to open this thing. Like everyone else is around me. Like I was good at working out during it. You hit a couple workouts during the seminar. And so I took it, and I was sitting in my buddy's car because I had to like sell my car and didn't know what I was going to do with my life after the Navy. And I remember sitting down in it, and I opened it up, and I saw like the CrossFit level 1. And I remember what these instructors were telling me during it was, all of this knowledge, it was beautiful, it was wonderful. But the biggest piece that they were teaching is you've got to care. You've got to care. When you care, all the other stuff is going to come. If you care about your clients, you're going to learn about their conditions and what you can do to help them. If you care about your craft, you're going to take the specialty courses inside and outside of CrossFit to get as much knowledge as possible. And when I stared at that certificate, I was like almost like emotional, being like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to squeeze every last drop out of what I can be from this because of what it has given me outside of the Navy. It was my lifesaver. Because outside of it, it's like you go all in. Like if you want to be in the SEAL teams, like you have to go all in to be doing that. And then when you get to a point where you're like, hey, we're good, boys. And then it gets taken away. I had nothing. And from there, and from the chance of being with unbelievable coaches and people that have stuck their neck out for me and cared about me and taught me from, how to deal with people, how to deal with mechanics of range of motion, how to deal with all of this stuff. I mean, I've been so lucky. I try to use the word fortunate because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm lucky that I have this life. I'm lucky that I'm a celebrity trainer. Like, I've worked for it. But I've also been put in positions that maybe not everyone else has. And I've been looked after and taken care of more than I probably should have. And that's what inspired me to, I cannot get enough of training. There is no one that I can not learn from. I'll learn from anyone. I learn from my clients. I learn from people signing up to take the level 1, level 2 certificate courses. They may say things in a way that translates better to one athlete or another. And it's just, I'm so grateful that, like, I love training. I love it more than my own training, which I love to do, is coaching and giving that to someone else. Because I feel like it was just an impetus to, whatever, of success. I consider myself successful, not from like a financial standpoint, just because I wake up every day and I'm just so fired up about the ability to do what I can do.
Following your passion. So wait, you injured your elbow? That's why you got out of the Navy?
Yeah. So I threw the baseball really hard as a kid. Mm-hmm. And, it was like, they didn't have like these pitch counts where it was like, oh, little kids can only throw 60 pitches. They were like, Conor's throwing fastballs. He's throwing heaters. We're going to keep him in the whole game. Like an 8-year-old throwing 9-inning games. And then when I was in high school, just with doing training, doing functional movements, power cleans, but with absolutely no coaching or technique or mechanics. It was like, people are like, oh, CrossFit's dangerous. You're like, how about when people are telling you to do this stuff with no coaching at all? But that's a
deadlift reverse curl.
Yeah,
that was a power clean.
And so I'd had issues with my elbow. So there was issues diving. So at a certain depth, because of the compression on my elbow and the surgeries that I'd had actually on both of them.
Yeah.
If you came up without safety stops, so acclimation at different levels of depth, I would essentially get the bends in my elbows. So it would build up. As the dive officer said, it was like oxygen would almost build up like carbonation. So from that would be into a decompression chamber and then just issues with it. And my issue at the time is it's like, okay, well then if diving is out of the question, there's so much other stuff that there's these job fields and things that I could do. And I got through training. I learned a lot about myself. I learned I was probably a little tougher than I thought and that I could achieve any goal that I needed to. But I don't want to take credit of doing a job that I, barely did. And so I try not to like market it as that. I want respect for what I'm doing now in training. But it was a cool piece of my life where it was like, this is what I wanted to do and realizing that I could do anything. But what I learned from that later on was that set me up with tools of success to be whoever I wanted to be outside of it. So, because I went in, it was like, I'm getting cleared. I'm getting orders. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And the dive officers were like, no. And I was training. I started doing CrossFit to get fitter. I was the fittest I'd ever been. And they were like, your elbows are going to be a liability. And I'm like, cleaners are 315 pounds right now. My elbows are fine. And it was like, well, here's the issues. And at the time, it didn't make sense to me. But obviously, like overall, like there are standards. And to be cleared for your jump dive physical is what you had to have to operate on any kind of special operations. If you weren't cleared for that, it didn't matter how great you are or how motivated you were. It was like, you just couldn't do that.
That's crazy. Did you do Hell Week and all that stuff?
Yeah.
How was that?
It's, you think about it like anything. If completing it is what you're going to do to get the job you want, then sure, it sucks in all training. Other things are going to suck. I'm sure everyone has their own Hell Week, but if you want to do the job at the end of it, it's relatively simple.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, there are dudes that are badass dudes that either quit or didn't make it through because they wanted to test themselves. They want to say, hey, I want to try to go through the hardest training, but halfway through, you're going to look and be like, I don't want to do the job on the other side of this. Why am I continuing to do this?
Right.
But when you come from a place where you got nothing else, like, how am I going to quit? How am I going to quit and then go to nothing?
Yeah. What do you mean by like nothing else? Like, so when you signed up for the Navy, at that point in your life, where were you mentally?
I enlisted out of high school. I thought that I could probably maybe go to college. The issue is that I was a shithead. I got into trouble. I did anything I could to get attention, to make my friends laugh, and at the expense of my family, which I had such a great, childhood. My dad worked his ass off to make sure I was taken care of. My mom also worked, but then took care of like the kids at home. Like they took care of us, but I just had this, like it was just unchanneled, energy. I don't think I was like inherently a bad kid, but I just wanted to do stuff that made my friends laugh. And I found myself in a position where I knew I was going to go into the Navy. That was all I wanted to do. That I didn't set myself up to do anything else. And take SATs, I didn't apply to any colleges. It's like, when am I going to go back to my hometown and work, the same jobs and go tell everyone that I was going to go be a SEAL, that I had to go quit. It was like, for me, there was no other option. So no matter what.
Sorry, I was going to say that must have been tough then, hearing that news from one of your officers about your elbows, because you're like, mentally, you're like, all right, this is going to set me on a course for one thing. And then you get another roadblock and you're just like, what the hell? But then ultimately from that whole experience brought you into CrossFit and what you're doing now. So was that, hearing that first from your officer, were you, did everything come crashing down, or were you more like, okay, now turn on the burners, like we can't fail, we've already come this deep?
Oh, it was the former. I thought the world was coming down. I went to war with the Navy. I got civilian opinions on my elbows. I tried to make an example. I had people that said they were going to vouch for me to make sure everything was good. And then it was like I felt like, as I could understand, as like an 18-year-old going through that, I felt like the world owed me something. I was like, hey, I did this, so I need this to happen, not realizing the reality of the situation. And so I was angry. And I was, again, like I said, I felt like the world owed me something. I'd go out and I'd be partying, and I would, I'd look for someone at the bar who was, being a bully to their friends, or who tried to be like a tough guy, and I would get in fights every night. And I was going out and I would got in trouble on base, fought one of the MAs coming back on base, and it was like in my head, I was like, no one knows what I'm going through. And that's such a loser's mentality. I'm not like I will say this, and I'm sure other people have had times in their life, and there's probably people that feel that way. But when you think, the second you think you're the only one going through something, or what you're going through is harder than what anyone else is, you are a loser.
Yep.
And it might sound intense, and you might say in your own head right now, being like, well, there's different things. And it's like, some of the biggest quotes and inspirations in my life are from people that had that realization and were able to give it back to me, where it is, you are either 100% responsible for everything that happens to you in your life, or you're a victim. And I'm like, and all of a sudden hear me riding this high, this accomplished, achieved young guy who did what no one else said they could, is now back down here because I think the world owes me something. And it wasn't until I moved so when I got out of the Navy, I was like, I don't want any of this. I don't want private security work. I don't want contract work. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to go make it on my own. So I moved to St. Thomas, where I had some friends that they were my neighbors. They weren't military at all, but they were like the funnest dudes to party with. And so I moved down to St. Thomas, and it was like 3 days of drinking rum before I was like, all right, I got to get a little workout in. So I did a Tabata workout on the beach, and one of the girls that I was like probably hitting on at the time was like, oh, I want to do a workout. It's like, cool. So we did this Tabata workout. She's like, oh, I was so sore from that afterwards. Like, we should get a little beach group ready. And this is actually a funny story about how like it all relates onto how I like figured out that I shouldn't be sorry for myself. So I'm getting this group of people, CrossFit guy, like Navy Special Warfare, like all this whole thing, even though like it was hardly a title for me. And someone was like, oh, I did CrossFit. This is in 2012. I did CrossFit, with that, or 2011, 2012, with that Navy SEAL guy at his house. And I was like, oh, there's a guy who's saying he's a Navy SEAL on this island, huh? Because no one knew what CrossFit was. And, it's always like the title where people are, I can't tell you what I went through in training, but I was this high level, like it's all out there.
Yeah.
Like, what was your bud's class? Where'd you graduate? Whatever it is. And so, and I'm like, and no one's doing actual CrossFit. So I end up seeing this woman out, Kristen, and she was like, oh, that's the Navy SEAL guy. And I'm like, here I am. I'm going to go, expose this guy. And man,
Stolen valor.
Look across the bar, and I'm like, the guy looks, pretty squared away. I go over to him, like, oh, so you do CrossFit? He's like, yeah. So you're a Navy SEAL? Yeah. I was like, what buds class were you in? He was like, well, and he like, said his class. And he was like, yeah, I finished on Gold Squadron and DevGru, which is SEAL Team 6.
Yeah.
Oh. And I was like, oh yeah. And he was like, who's your OIC? Who's the commander over at SEAL Team 1? And I was like, well, by the time I'm like stammering over my words right now, and I'm the guy. I'm the fucking loser right now. And I was just like, and he's like, okay, yeah, cool. And he's like, we do workouts. He's like, we actually affiliated my house, so it's an actual CrossFit gym. Whereas I'm just like doing CrossFit workouts on the beach, and I'm just like, oh man. So he's like, yeah, tomorrow, and we're both out drinking at a bar. Tomorrow we're gonna do a workout at 8 a.m. He's like, if you think you can wake up that early, you can come on by. And he was like kind of calling me out, and I left. I was like, man, that guy's kind of a dick. And he left, and he's like, this guy's what a poser. And the next day I was like, I gotta go, because at least I'm fit. At least I'm good at CrossFit. Yeah. Him and I went head to head in a workout. It was like a 30-minute hero workout. We finished it almost the exact same time, like sprinting back to the house. After recovering for 20 minutes, him and I are like, yeah, we should combine forces and do this together. To this day, one of my best friends, one of my best mentors, he now runs partnerships with the Navy SEAL Foundation. He was the president of Kill Cliff, which I'm sure you remember Kill Cliff, like the recovery drink. I mean, retired Navy commander, spent 6-8 years in DevGru, SEAL teams his entire, just like rode for the Naval Academy, was just like absolute, just like this dude pissed excellence. And he's from Natick, Massachusetts.
Really?
Oh,
Yes.
All right, you got to get us.
Yeah,
get us in touch. I've been trying to get a Navy SEAL on.
Oh yeah, so Chris
months.
Irwin, and so he actually does a podcast called The X.
Okay.
And it's and they just started it through Navy SEAL Foundation, but I mean he's gone through it all. But this was someone, it's kind of a long roundabout story, but he never felt like the world owed him anything. We never had that discussion. He never said, "Hey, here's how you need to be. Here, let me give you this motivational speech." He was never motivational with anything that he was saying to me, with the exception of how he lived his life and how he took care of his family and how he never felt sorry for himself about any of the stuff that happened. I mean, he went through some pretty, after this, some pretty serious health issues, with starting off with like trying to identify mold toxicity, points where he could barely function. Some serious TBI and mental health stuff that he has gone everywhere looking outside of Western medicine to figure out what the hell's going on with him. There's been days where he's in tears in his kitchen begging his wife to let him kill himself because of how bad everything is and from this career in the teams. And he's open about this, and he expresses this type of stuff so that he can help other people. There's no ego there. There's no thinking that the world owes him anything or thinking that he's better than anyone. Most people didn't even know he was in the teams when we were down in St. Thomas because he wanted people to respect him for who he was then. How often is it someone who's like, oh yeah, that guy was a SEAL. I'm like, wow, he must be a great dude. And it's like, you don't think there's dirtbags in the teams?
Yeah.
You don't think there's, all different types of personalities? Sure, there's some tough training that you have to go through. But I mean, you think about a single mom working 2 jobs, I'm like, that's harder.
Yeah.
That's way harder. You didn't make that decision. Here, this is the job that I want to go into. Yeah. It's like, hey, here's something, the situation, you have to make something of yourself. And from Chris, that really reset me to be like, hey, I've got to get over this. I've got to leave that in a life behind me. I can't start making sure that I need that in order to succeed in life. I've just got to be the best at what I do.
It's funny, you can tell a lot about a person by what they get set off about, like by what they complain about, because when you've been through shit. Let me give you an example. Somebody's driving to work, get a flat tire, right? One person, fuck, I got a meeting today, I got this. That flat tire has ruined their day. It's 7:30 in the morning, and they're already like, my day's gonna suck. Somebody else gets a flat tire on their way to work, and they're like, oh shit, all right, cool. AAA, or they go out, they fix it themselves, get to work a little bit late, keeps it moving. Do you know what I'm saying? I call it the mirror test, where you're saying it's like, no matter what the situation, everyone gets bad breaks, but no matter what situation happens to you, you can always look in the mirror and say, what could I have done in that situation? A breakup. All right, were you fucking 4 for 4 with 4 grand slams in that relationship? No, you weren't. What did I? Maybe the other person was a piece of shit, but like you can't say like in the movies. It's not like those Tyler Perry movies where the woman is perfect and the guy was a total scumbag. No, usually it takes 2 to tango. Listen, I got divorced. The first thing I did was go, okay, what the hell did I do? And I realized what my role in it was. I was the way I grew up. I thought that marriage was don't cheat, don't have any vices, don't cheat, don't gamble, don't have a drinking problem, anything like that. Take care of your family financially, and you're good. That's what I was doing in my first marriage. And then my wife one time, she pulled me aside and she was like, I feel like you need to spend more time, because I was doing like a million. I wasn't saying no to anything. I needed to learn how to say no to opportunities. So one day she pulled me aside and she said, I don't think you're spending enough time with me and the girls. All I heard was my kids. So I became super dad after that. And soon after that, she came to me. She's like, I think we should separate, whatever. We got divorced. And I was confused as hell. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait a minute, you know what it was? You kind of like start replaying it. I'm like, oh, that's what it was. I should have done this. I should have done that. But it could happen in anything. In a situation where you go, wow, that was just fucking shit luck. I didn't do anything. You could still look in the mirror and figure things out sometimes. Life isn't fair. Life doesn't owe you anything, but there's not many people out there who are just killing it and doing everything right.
Yeah.
And just bad luck keeps falling. Usually you build some sort of momentum, good or bad, you know?
Oh, yeah. And I think the biggest thing that you just said is that perspective. And, that was something I didn't realize at the time, that like in the Navy, guys would look to me. I was skinny, but I could laugh in pretty much any scenario. So people almost looked to me when shit was really bad to crack a joke or to say something. I would always be the guy to be like, this sucks. I hope what we do next doesn't suck quite as much. And they get like a laugh from that. And it's really just the way you look at it and that perspective. Like the whole like, oh, I had a flat tire. I mean, I think you're giving most people credit by saying it would ruin their day. And that a lot of times that ruins people's weeks.
Yeah.
Why did this happen to him? It's like, what does it matter? Laugh it off. It's like, then you spill your coffee getting out of the car and then it starts raining. It's like, at what point in time can you just take a step back and laugh? Because it's going to make your life a whole lot better than you being pissed off at the world for no reason.
Yep.
Sure, it sucks. Are you going to get through it? I mean, it is that perspective. It's being able to, and there's times I still also lose my shit every now and again. I'm a much more well-mannered than maybe back at like 18-year-old or 22-year-old or even 28-year-old Conor. But, you reflect on things, and especially when you talk about relationships where it's like you're so upset at someone else and you're like, well, what could I have done in order to make this better? And a lot of times you can reflect on that, and then that may come up with an apology. Hey, I know I was really frustrated with you about this, but here is where I was coming from. And because I said that, I get that it frustrated you. I could have dealt with that differently. And then all of a sudden, it's like magic. Like you diffuse a situation, and then who you're having this conversation with, they're like, oh, I thought it was going to be another argument. Like, you know what? I get that, and now I could have done it. Like responsibility, taking 100% responsibility for what happens to you is like, why not? I promise you it's a better life. I promise you. Even if you don't fully believe it, pretend to do it, and it's going to give you a better life. And looking at that thing in hindsight, it's like, I don't know.
It's easier to play hot potato to say it's this person's fault than to say, because then you have to take ownership and go, oh God, I got to fix this. But the good thing about it is that people look at it like, I think it's like running a marathon. I believe that there's very few people out there who cannot run a marathon, because anybody can do it. But a lot of people talk themselves up. Do you think you can run a marathon?
Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, he's like, yes,
yeah.
yes,
He's like,
yes. Please don't make me do it right now. I don't want to.
This is why a lot of people don't think.
Take off those boots, throw on those sneakers.
A lot of people think they can't because in their head they're like, I got to run a marathon tomorrow. Can't do that shit. Who said you got to run it tomorrow?
Yeah, no, I'm running tomorrow.
Walk for 10 minutes. If that's all you can do, walk for 10 minutes, and then the next day walk for 11 minutes. Like
I knew you were gonna say that too. I was like,
how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So, but a lot of people, they look at whatever it is they need to fix, and instead of going, okay, I'm gonna start working on that right now, slowly. So I'll be better tomorrow than I am today, and then I'll work on a little more the next day to be better than the previous day. They think I can't do all that. I can't eat that whole thing in one sitting. So they don't even take action and start.
Well, do I think I can? Yes. Do I want to? No.
Can I tell you something? So I've only, when I first ran a marathon, I only did it because my friend told me to do it, and we did the New York one because he said, let's just go. It'll be a weekend in New York. And I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'll do it. Then after that, the reason I ran more was because, so the next one I did New York. Then I ran Chicago for the same reason. It'll be a weekend in Chicago.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so, reason to hang out. I didn't give a shit about time, any of that stuff. I'm like, as long as I finish and I feel all right, I'm good. So then I did those two. And then to anybody who doesn't run marathons, all they hear is the Boston Marathon. So if it comes up in conversation, oh, you ran a marathon? Yeah. Did you run Boston? No. Oh, which one did you run? I ran New York and Chicago. Oh, how far are those? They're all the same fucking distance. They're just in different places. So then I ran Boston just so when people said, oh, did you run Boston? Yeah, I did run Boston, you know? And then after that, I ran Boston and felt so, I ran it in 2012, that hot ass one where it was, people were deferring just because the temperature was so hot. I felt so shitty when I finished that I said, I got to run another one just because I don't want
that to be your legacy.
This to be, so 3 weeks later, I ran one in Rhode Island. Bro, it was right next to the water. The temperature was perfect. I got a cool breeze. I finished that one, and I was like, this is it. I'm done doing this bullshit. And I didn't run another one for years until my wife ran one, and then she told me to join her, and I did it for her.
I mean, hey, it's a great way to raise money, bring awareness to things.
No, it is.
Yeah, am I genuinely interested in a marathon? Probably not.
But my point is, my reasons were very nefarious. It was literally just for conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran a marathon.
You could have done other things.
Yeah. And then it was to say, yeah, I ran Boston. And then the other one was just to be like, I want to be able to not have a
yeah, I can't leave off on Boston. I wanted to go back real quick.
It sounds like really quick that you're kind of committing to running a marathon, raising money for charity. It says you don't want to, but it kind of sounds like that. Anyways,
you know, tune in and we'll see what happens. But I wanted to go back to something you said really struck a chord in me. I was remembering this. How you were saying how your officer, I don't know if it was the officer or the Navy SEAL guy you met in St. Thomas. I think it was the Navy SEAL guy. He didn't give you that whole motivational spiel nonsense.
Chris Irwin.
Yeah, Chris Irwin. It kind of was just, it was just something you picked up from being with him so much. I know this guy. I met him at the gym, actually. He ran the personal trainers. Same guy that, not the same guy, like Talene. It's like the guy that runs all the trainers, basically. And he was new, and you could tell he was in the Marine. You know, some people, they just like, they have that vibe. Like, he was like 6 foot, big guy, tattoos. He had a messed up eye. You could just tell he was in the military. So at first I was like, oh.
That sounds like somebody who could have been in prison too, though.
Well, no, but
they're very similar things.
Yeah,
Let's not.
His demeanor.
I thought it was more like the energy. He's like, the look.
No, his energy was, I was going to say his energy was extremely.
Teardrops tattooed on his face, spider webs on his elbows. You're like,
yeah.
Literally. No, but he
biceps.
He had a very like respectful vibe. Anyway, so I got to know him a little bit, just like chit chatting, whatever, and it came up in conversation. He was a Marine and whatever. Like, just like every time I'd see him, we would talk for a bit. And one of our first like long conversations, I had just assumed whatever happened to his eye happened in the military. I just assumed, because he would tell me stories. He was like a sniper. He would tell me all these things. So I was like, oh crap, he probably got hurt when he was deployed. And then finally, I don't know how it came up. I was like, hey, do you mind if I just like, I really don't mean to be rude, but like, can I ask what happened to your eye? And he said, and then I stopped. As soon as I asked him that, it all started falling together. I was like, wait a minute. He's told me about his amazing career as a Marine. He's told me about all the amazing opportunities he's had. Why is he here? Not crapping on his job or what he was doing. I just stopped for a minute right before he told me the story, because I just was like, why are you, normally you would go in this direction, that direction. Why are you here? He said to me, he goes, well, I came home. he goes, and my plan was, he's like, I was going to be a state trooper, you know, that typical route. A lot of guys from Mass after the Marines take, they want to go into like law enforcement and stuff. He's like, that's what I thought was going to happen. He goes, I was out one night with my friends at this bar, and we're outside, and I see this guy having a really aggressive argument with his girlfriend. And he's like, whatever. He's like, I was ignoring it. He's like, yeah, I might have had a couple of drinks in me, but he's like, first I ignored it. I was like, whatever. Then it was getting even crazier. He's like, and this guy was like, he was on something. You could tell he was like messed up. Then he goes, then I saw him like physically grab her, and things just got a little bit ridiculous. So he's like, I go and I break it up. He's like, then obviously the guy's hammered, starts hitting me. We get into a tussle. He's like, my friend jumps in. We split it up. The guy walks away. And all of the friends are talking to the girl. You okay? Do you need us to call the cops? Whatever. He says, next thing I know, I just feel a hand come over me and something sharp. And he's like, I don't even remember what happened next. He's like, I just picked the guy. This guy I'm talking about is like 6 of them. He's like, I just picked him up, threw him on the floor, and I just started wailing on him. He's like, there's blood everywhere on him. He's like, I thought I killed him. He goes, but it was my blood. And what this guy did, he grabbed glass or he grabbed something sharp and came back and just gashed this kid in the eye, the one I'm talking about. I'm not going to say his name just because I don't know if he wants the story out. I mean, it was public, but anyways.
We already know the gym you work at, the dude with the jacked up eye who runs all the trainers.
Well, he's actually in San Diego now. There's a whole.
Oh, so now he's in San Diego. Okay, we're going to track him down.
He's in
giving
Revere.
all the details. I'll tell you where he works next. Anyways, no, but the whole point why I'm saying all this is because he's telling me this story, and I'm like, God, if that was me, like, I'd be saying, like, I'd be victim status completely. Yeah. You know what I mean? I love what you said. Yeah, like, yeah.
You definitely would.
I would just be like victim status completely because, like, what the hell? Like, you're a Marine, you served your country, you did all these amazing things, you broke up a domestic dispute, and then you get, like, you know, he's blind now. And he wasn't able to go to the academy because of that. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, he's like, made me really depressed. He's like, I had a young son at the time. I couldn't go back into the military because of this. All because of that situation. So I just said to him, I was just like, I remember I was speechless for a second. I was like, how are you doing? Like, he goes, these are the cards that were dealt to me.
And then you play 'em,
He's like, it sucks. He goes, it's not what I wanted. He goes, but I need to figure it out. And I remember him and I would have a lot of deep conversations. And he honestly, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but he told me, he's like, Moose, for someone, you know, he's like, you heard my story. He's like, you said a lot of things that kind of gave me that push to do something else. Now he's doing amazing. He's in California. He's extremely successful in training as well. He's doing awesome. But it is really imperative what you said earlier. Sometimes it's not that like Master Miyagi figure. Sometimes it's literally just being in that energy, being surrounded by that, that will change your mindset. So for you, that must have been so important because, like you said, you want St. Thomas, maybe you're a little bit cocky. Who's this guy? And then look where you are now and look at your relationship with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he was. He definitely helped me in a way where it wasn't like, you know, it's like that guy wasn't being like, hey, you got to make sure that you take every life with, you know, take every day with this, and no matter what happens to you, you just look at someone else and then you see their life from what they went through, and you're like, well, why can't I do that? Mm-hmm. And I think there's no greater disservice that one can do than feel sorry for themselves.
100%. There's so many people that I say you never know what you can do until you have to do it. Like you'll hear people who joke around and go like, oh, if my doctor told me I could never have any more pizza, I would die. And I'm like, really? So if your doctor literally sat you down and said, if you take one more bite of a fucking pizza, you're going to let yourself die, you wouldn't even touch a fucking pizza. You just never know up until, and it happens to everybody. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it's just a matter of time. Life is, I don't want to say life is tragedy, but if a tragic type of circumstance hasn't happened to you yet, or if it never happened in your life, that means that you were the tragic circumstance that happened to someone else. It really is. It means that you...
Or it means it's coming.
Yeah, it definitely means it's coming. It just, nobody makes it saying, you know what, life was pretty good. What's the worst thing that happened to you? Oh, I don't know, my kitten died when I was 9. No.
Well, but some people, though, and I'm sure you've met people like that, that's all they've ever experienced. And that's all they know is that little thing that some people deal with on a daily basis that must be so hard.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you even get mad at them? Do you even judge them? because it's like that's their environment. Because I've had to stop myself many times where people are telling me their hardship or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, for God's sakes, like, how about we have a little bit of gratitude here? Like, you're complaining about this? Then I have to stop myself sometimes, and I'm like, maybe that's all they know. Maybe that's that one minor thing that's nothing to me is everything to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's perspective. It's the worst things that's happened to you at this point in your life is the worst thing. So for somebody, maybe it was their dad didn't buy him that nice car when they turned 16 or something. But again, like you said, it just hasn't happened yet.
And I relate this back to training as well. And we talked about when someone walks into a CrossFit gym and they say, oh, this is too intense. And then we talk about, okay, well, it's relative intensity. And all hardships are relative. And so I can't, it's hard to like empathize. It's hard to sympathize, but you can empathize with that 16-year-old who the worst thing that's ever happened to them is they haven't gotten that car, for them to feel that way. Now, having perspective and being like, hey, here's some other things, but it's similar to someone who's experienced death 100 times, who's carried their friends off battlefields, who's held their dead friends in their arms. And when, a relative or a cousin passes away and it's like, that's sad, I'll pray for them or do whatever. But if it's someone's first time experiencing death, it's terrible. They haven't experienced any of that before.
Right.
And that level of discomfort, the circle of discomfort, that might be here for you. And it's out of your comfort, and that's miserable. But as more, it's bad, sounds bad, as more miserable things happen, and you create adaptation from your experiences, that thing may not seem so bad for you. So it is all relative. So I don't want to stand on a high horse to be like, hey, these problems aren't that bad. This person has this problems. It's like, what do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
But when you have that foresight to be like, hey, things are going to happen, but it's more about how I react from them. Like, it's still important to process trauma. It's still important to grieve in certain situations. But at some point in time, you got to pick yourself up and realize, hey, I can be miserable if I need to be miserable. But as soon as you stop being the victim, that's when good things are going to happen. I don't want to sit from a standpoint where I'm like, hear this, I grew up in a rich white neighborhood. I'm a relatively decent looking, fit white male who's gotten a lot of opportunities in my life to be like, oh, this isn't like, it's harder. It's different for different people. But it's the mindset that if you can carry that, you process the relative grief for everything that's happening to you, but it is that can carry you further, no matter what the circumstances are. I don't want to say, hey, be like me. It's like, no, be like these other people that I took these ideas from.
Yeah. Because you're always going to find, if you want to do the comparison thing, I hate to break it to anybody, but you're always going to find someone who has it worse than you. And on the flip side, you're always going to find someone who's
better.
Yeah. So it's all about improving yourself. That's why working out, when you look at it from the right perspective, it should be freaking like a mandatory thing that people just do.
Oh,
it should be.
It's your body. You get one.
But it's more than your body. It's like you were saying, you're doing something hard on a daily, or at least on a consistent basis, depending on how often you do it. And it helps you when
things are hard.
Because life is hard. And sometimes something happens that it's not that hard. It's a slight obstacle. And you can tell when that happens by the way the different people around it react. Because if you're somebody who consistently does hard things, you're like, all right, cool. How are we going to get over this? How are we going to move this to the side? How are we going to defeat this obstacle? If it's somebody who is normally like, oh, life's too hard, I just got to take it easy all the time, forget it. That's like a detour on the way to school. And they're like, I'm going back home. There's no other way to get to school. This street is closed. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I
think this is relative to what's popular now, and people talk about cold plunges, and there's stuff that happens inside your body that I can regurgitate information that I've read or listened to on a Joe Rogan podcast. Everyone can do that. Like we got it. Do I know what's going on? No, I'm not that smart, and I'm not a scientist. I can read it. I read studies of things, not just articles. It takes me probably a month longer than it would a normal person to read it. I got to Google a lot of stuff in there, but I'll do my research. But what I have found with me and with other people, that when you do it consistently, because it's not fun, it's hard, it sucks. And you know what? If you've done a cold plunge once and you're like, that was great, you haven't done anything. Do it on the days that you really don't want to do it. Do it on days when you're like, I really don't need to do it. I actually feel good. Do it for 30 days straight. And I can promise you the issues or the hard things that are happening in your life are going to be a little easier to approach.
Hell yeah.
That's what I have found from it. And, I've spent a ton of time in cold water, really don't like it. People are like, oh, you must love that. I'm like, no, I actually hate it more than you would imagine or than you probably do. But when you do that consistently, and it is hard. Like, it's not the hardest thing in the world. Like, I would rather do a cold plunge than a lot of other things that people go through on a daily basis. But I have found in an anecdotal setting, I was doing cold plunge. I was on like day 28. And this is before I had a cold plunge in my gym. I was just going to the ocean in January. And we had a class. And my production guy, or the head of production at the Grand, slept in, didn't show up. And so I had to turn on all the amps on. And people are like, oh, it's technology. I'm like, a nightclub sound system is different than you think it is. There's like 9 million switches. And I was like, hey, and I talked to the instructor. Class is probably going to start a couple minutes late. I'm going to run everything and get it all done. FaceTimed the head of production that's all in like the Seaport area. He walked me through everything. And as class is going, and I'm running visuals, I'm hitting lights, and the LED wall going. I'm like vibing back in like the front of house area. And like halfway through, I'm like, I've had that same scenario happen. And I was losing my shit.
Yep.
And I was so mad at these people being like, how could this person slip? Like, obviously they are going to be there for shows at night, and that's their main job. But I'm a partner in this company. This is just as important, or it should be just as important to them, even though it doesn't feel like a nightlife event. But in that scenario, I was like, that was the big realization for me. I was like, am I really this calm right now? Mm-hmm. I was just like, oh, it was something that happened, and I dealt with it, and then you moved on. It was like, it wasn't something I could avoid, or that getting pissed off was going to help.
No.
And when the guy got there, he said, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm like, honestly, not that big of a deal. I don't want it to happen again. But like, what am I gonna be mad at you? You're older than me. I'm not gonna yell at you to like, how important it is to be on time. Your drive in here through traffic was way more stressful than me turning these lights on. I'm like, don't let it happen again. We're good.
But it's funny, you're hearing that story, and I bet you most people are hearing that, and they're like, I would react nice and calm too. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. And by the way, cold plunges fucking suck. Yeah. I had the barrel, and I would do it with like throwing the ice in, but I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you know how pricey that is, getting bags of ice on a daily basis? So I just got, it's coming in January or February. I got the one with the little, where you could set the temperature.
Okay.
The barrel one.
What brand is it?
I think it's Ice Barrel.
Okay.
I think that's what it's called, Ice Barrel.
I've got one, shout out Cold Tub.
Yeah, I know that one.
So like, it's like the Peter Frates Foundation, like the whole ALS thing, what happened, all came from like Peter Frates, like they're partnered with them. And let me tell you, I wish I had a tub that I had to dump ice into, because these things are also hot tubs. So like the water circulates. I'll get in there and you'll feel the water blasting on your back. If you think you can get in still water being cold, get in water that's even a little bit warmer, but the water's circulating. You get in there. I've never been mad at a jet before, but I'm mad at these jets, man. You get out and you're like, I can feel the point where that thing was hitting on my back. It's incredible. It's effective, but it ain't fun.
Yeah. And honestly, what you're saying, it's a science thing. If you sit in the cold water and it's still, you almost build like a little layer of, I don't want to say insulation, but I'm going to say insulation on your body. But when you're constantly moving, or if the jets are moving, that's constantly breaking it up. So you're getting a consistent flash. This is the one I got, the Ice Barrel. Yeah, it is Ice Barrel.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, so that one's coming in a couple of months.
Can I ask the both of you, because you guys are consistent? I just started taking my working out seriously. Like, where are we? We're in November. I would say like 4 or 5 months ago. Like, I actually was like, all right, let's stop being like inconsistent with this. Generally, though, for me, I thought it was mental, and it is. Some days it is. Some days I walk out, I'm like, I didn't want to come here, but I'm glad I did. Like, I needed that. But generally, I really do look at it from a health standpoint. Like, I had a trainer once say, like, she was doing a class, and I just heard her say, she's like, guys, like, let's not moan and groan. Let's be thankful like we can move our bodies, and let's be thankful we got up today and we have our legs and we can move them and we're healthy, and or we're working towards our health. And I remember for some reason that really sat with me. I'm like, there are some people that are dying to be in my position, to have an able body to just like move. I was just like, I need to take care of it so that when I'm older and stuff, it'll maintain. But definitely though, I'm not taking away the mental aspect at all. It definitely is there. But I'm just saying, for me, that strikes a chord more for me personally.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you got to think, like, I've always been into health and stuff like. I think it's just because I got into martial arts and stuff. You know, like in my, when did I get into martial arts? Probably like early 20s. That's kind of like when I got into it myself, fitness stuff. But when my ex-wife got sick with brain cancer in 2013, it like kicked it up a notch of, oh shit, I got to be there. First of all, I get the opportunity to do this. I'm healthy. Second of all, I got to be there for like my kids, you know? So it's, and you really start, how old are you, Connor?
35.
35. Okay. You really start, I would even say at like 35, you know, depending for some people, you could see, and some people, you know, they're hit with shit health wise, which, you know, they got a bad break, but you can really see people's habits. It starts showing at or probably around in your 30s, definitely in your 40s, definitely in your 50s. I'm 48. I see a bunch of people I went to high school with or people around my age, and some of them look like shit. And some of them look great, but it's because of the daily consistent habits. Again, it's the marathon thing. Don't try and turn into freaking Vin Diesel tomorrow. Just go day after day after day, and it's easy to do it the days that you want to do it.
Mm-hmm. You say you were 48?
I'm 48, yeah.
Fuck you, dude.
I am, yeah.
Fuck, good for you.
Yeah. Yo, you got to consistency,
That's what
baby.
I'm saying, man.
Yeah. Because you know what's funny too? I work out. My workout is 30 to 40 minutes. Well, on the weekends, I guess I work out a little bit, but 30 to 40 minutes. I was telling you, I joked with Connor. I sent him a text. I said, my workout is either, depending on your time zone, the earliest workout in the United States or the latest, because I work out at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, true.
But it's just, and trust me, if I did it when I wanted to, I would work out twice a fucking month. Getting up at that time sucks, but you just get up and you do it. And it pays off. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're 24, so there are dudes who probably look fucking phenomenal, and they're like, oh, I eat fucking fries and shit every day, and I pound beers. Talk to them in 20 years.
Talk to me in 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a guy right now, Trevor Smith, call him Smitty, works for Big Night through all the card stuff, and 24 years old, looked at himself in the mirror, 360 pounds, and said, I got to make changes. Was an athlete, was a wrestler, is successful in the line of work that he does, great personality, everyone loves being around him, but he's like, I got to make changes because life isn't going to get better by creating those habits. And he's one of those people that there's different category of people that you can kind of put people in. And I don't want to always put buckets for people, but there's the people who are like, oh, I'd love to work out, but I can't. And it's like, you got to get some mental fix before we can really get some progress there. There's the contemplation stage being like, well, yeah, let's do it. I want to do it for like this week, and then we'll see what happens next week. And it's like, all right, they're not really committing. They want to work out. And then you get the people who are all in. And Smitty was like, I need to make these changes. I'm 24. I can't have the health issues that I'm having right now. And change his diet, stop drinking, started training with me nearly every day. He does his own thing on weekends. Gave him like a weight vest because he was just doing walks. But now that he's down 40 plus pounds, I'm like, throw that weight vest on, baby. This walk's getting too easy for you. But that's in that stage where it's like, it can happen at any age. And people also don't know with like their blood work, what's going on. And then genetically as well. It's like, everyone's been dealt different cards. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean you have to play them. When someone's like, oh, well, I gain weight easy. It's like, okay, well, you're going to have to train harder and eat less. Like, sorry. Yeah, my metabolism might be fantastic and it'd be great if you had it, but you don't. So let's figure out what's next from here. But we were saying something where it was about like, about training. I love, and I'm pretty sure you love it too, when people are like, oh, yeah, but you're a morning person. When they say, because I train every day in the morning. Yeah. And I'm like, I want a camera. I want one of these cameras. When I wake up in the morning, and you see how angry I am every morning. Not once has my alarm gone off, and I go, that was enough sleep.
Yeah.
That was good. I'm actually a little toasty in my bed. I think I'd actually like to get out of it right now. No.
And go for a cold plunge.
No. Yeah. I look at that and I'm like, dang it. Here we go. And then at 6:45, when I'm finished my training, I'm gearing up for the day, and people that I work with aren't awake yet, I'm like, this was worth it. But don't tell me that we're different in an area where it's like, oh, you like waking up in the morning. Like, no, I want to sleep till 10. I want no responsibilities.
I question my existence multiple times a week. I'm like, why do I do this stupid shit?
I was gonna text you when I was in New York because it was like 2:30. I was like, he's probably up right now.
100%. Well, that's funny. Everyone goes, well, why do you do it at that time? If you could do it later on in the day, you're only working 6 to 10. And I said, because luckily I've developed like a good discipline. So, you have the levels of people when they go to work out that are kind of like, what am I gonna do? Look around. Maybe I'll do a little bit of this. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that. I can tell you exactly what I'm gonna do tomorrow right now. I can tell you what I'm gonna do freaking next Thursday right now, So I know exactly what I'm gonna do, and especially the way, after a while, you kind of figure out life is life. Shit happens. But you pretty much figure out kind of like how your day is gonna be structured. At 2:30 in the morning, if somebody is texting me, calling, if somebody's trying to get in contact with me at 2:30 in the morning, it is an emergency, hardcore. If someone's trying to get in contact with me at 2:30 in the afternoon, it could just be the bullshit.
Any reason. So I'm like, I don't want to deal with getting interrupted and stuff like that. I know I'll get in there by myself. People leave me alone. Get it done for the day. And it starts, if you don't do it consistently, you think, oh, but I'm going to feel like trash. I'm going to be so tired after. No, it's like a burst of energy. When you do it just right, you got to get out just like, it's like a movie. You don't want it to last too long. You got to get out right at the perfect time where you're like, all right, cool, I'm good, You will feel people who don't have time. Like, you'll be more productive with the time the rest of your day. Don't have energy for it. You're going to have more energy.
Yeah.
And one thing that I like that I've just there's always these realizations. There's always this thought process. But one thing that I want to lean into is when you're like, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. Well, let's talk about from the mental aspect of that too. Like, everyone should have a daily checklist or a checklist of things they need to do. When you have an item on there that sucks and you're like, oh man, you'll tend to avoid it or do other stuff around it. If every day you have your workout scheduled, no matter what that thing says, you're going to do it, that is now preparing yourself for anything life is going to throw at you. Oh, you have a checklist? I had an item the other day where I had to find the last 3 years of insurance, of car insurance. And I'm like, went on Geico, and I'm like, how do you even print or do any of that? And it got to the point where it was comical for me. I have no idea. This is gonna be the hardest thing. I have to go to an RMV and make an appointment, and then I have to get a driving record. And it was that stuff, but it was this is on your checklist. You're gonna do it. It was, even as much as it was a pain in the ass, it wasn't something that I avoided and then eventually didn't do. It's you have that stuff, you get it done. The more you do that, the harder this stuff is. It's on your fitness checklist. There's days where I'm excited for tomorrow's workout. That happens once a month. Most of the time I'm like, dang it. And I program it. There's so many parallels to it that I know we're talking about all this stuff, and it's just so powerful. I hope that if someone is listening to this, it's in that contemplation stage. They're like, all right, I want to get started. And then I guess if I ask you a question, how did you gain the consistency of it with a busy schedule and with a bunch of stuff going on?
For me, it was probably when I started doing mornings in radio, because before that I would go to the gym and stuff like that and work out. But I was doing, first I was doing nights and I was doing afternoons. But when I started doing mornings, that is what I wanted to do from when I got into radio. So that was when I tiered the things in my life at the time. I was like, okay, that's my number one thing. So in order to optimize that, I had to figure out everything else around it. So at the time I was doing I mean, I used to do like club appearances and stuff like 7 days a week, hanging out late at night, all that stuff. And I said, okay, I got to cut out those things so I could not be tired the next day because I'm going to start getting up earlier. Okay, I'm going to start consistently working out to give me energy so I could perform the best at that time. I'm going to start eating right. And again, none of this, it's not, I didn't go 0 to 10. It was all, it's like working out, you trial and error type of thing. So I started noticing that if I had a heavy meal soon before I went to bed, I would go to bed feeling kind of full, wake up the next day feeling kind of sluggish. It just started me off almost on a back foot, and I didn't like that. I felt like I was starting off my day defensively. So I said, okay, you can make sure I eat right, make sure I have my last meal at this time, not make it the society. It's like you have that big ass dinner before you go at night. I'm not gonna do that. If anything, I'll have my heavier meal like for lunch. But that's to answer your question anyway. That was pretty much it when I started doing mornings, and I was like, okay, I got to figure out everything else around it to optimize that.
So it almost made it harder to do. That's what made you do it. Because beforehand, we were like, oh, I could always go to the gym. I can do it at any time.
Yeah.
So it's like when the opportunity was like, you're like, all right, now I really got to schedule this.
And that's it, exactly, because it was so much easier at the time. Everybody who I had who was a friend of radio who did mornings, I mean, they were all kind of out of shape, heavy, tired all the time. And it was because they were going to bed at still, 10, 11 o'clock at night, even though they had to get up early the next day. You get free food sent in all the time, freaking plowing it and living a sporadic type of schedule. I started going, okay, the more I can schedule the things I need throughout the day, knowing that stuff is going to come up every now and then. But if I can control the controllable, then I'm just setting myself up better for the rest of the day. So it's funny because, like you said, people were like, oh my God, you're so energetic in the morning and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's intentional. Getting up early sucks. You've been doing it for 20 something years. You get used to it. No. The alarm goes off. I just get up like I always give the Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
I always give the analogy. Remember when the sister's looking for him and she kicks in the door to his bedroom and that dummy just shoots up?
Yeah.
I'm the dummy that shoots up when my alarm goes off. If I even make it to my alarm, if I look, I have that like 6 minutes left to sleep. I'm like, fuck it, let me get up now.
Because it's gonna be worse.
It's gonna be worse.
You're gonna be twice as tired.
Yeah, but if I do make it to the alarm goes off. I don't snooze any of that stuff. I go, I literally shoot up, shut it off, and immediately start moving. And half the time I start moving, you would think that I'm like drunk or high because I'm kind of like still wobbling around because I'm not fully awake. But just from experience now, I'm like, if I just keep moving my feet, walk my ass into the bathroom, blast the light on, I know it's going to wake me up. But yeah, that's what it was.
So I guess here's something for anyone who's listening to this, because I always like to give objective things for people to get better at, because I'm an objective guy. I don't like subjective. I mean, although there's times where it's obviously important, but if you want to start improving, whether it's waking up earlier to work out or whether it's waking up earlier to do whatever it is, wake up 30 minutes early, journal, read in the morning, do whatever that you think is going to improve it. Alarm goes off. You have to have both your feet on the floor, standing up before you're allowed to turn your alarm off. So if you're someone who hits snooze, try it. Try it for a week. Make it a week challenge. And I can promise you a couple of things. One, after that week challenge, it will be easier to do. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to want to do it, but it will be easier to do to get your feet on the floor. And two, your quality of life will be better. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is you want to get better at in the morning. Reading, meal prep, drinking coffee, workout, whatever it is that you're going to do in the morning. People don't do bad shit in the morning. It's not like, I want to wake up early so I can, get an extra beer in before work. I mean, if that's the case, we probably have some other issues to do. But whatever it is, don't tell me about it. Just tell me if it got better in those 7 days. And I'm willing to bet, all of my money, so $3.40 in my wallet. No, it's going to get better. So that's an objective thing. If you're in that contemplation stage, try that. That's your starting point.
Yeah. What's your morning routine?
I usually get up depending. This morning I trained a little bit earlier, so I trained at 5:30 because I have a 6:30 and 7:30 class. I run free classes on Friday for anyone who wants to try CrossFit. It's always fun because people are like, man, I really want to get in. I'm like, come, I'll teach. It doesn't matter your background or anything. I limit the class sizes. And so that was fun. I love Fridays. It's because you get people that from all different works. But wake up usually 5. I am not have my coffee and that type of thing in the morning. I'll wake up. I have my bag packed for what I need the next day. I'll wake up, shorts, shirt, sweatshirt, backpack, out the door within 10 minutes. If I leave on time, it takes me 14 minutes to get to my gym. If I leave late, it takes me 30 minutes to get to my gym. It's like that, like traffic area. So I arrive at just before 6 a.m. and I have 2 guys that I train. One guy who's always just kind of worked out with me, another guy who's a professional lacrosse player, and I trained him for like 6 years before I was like, hey, I'm not going to charge you anymore, but I'm also not going to give you this hour. Like, it was too valuable of an hour for one person that was outside of like the work stuff. So like, you're just going to work out with me now. And he's like, yeah, that's great. So we train every morning at 6, and I write the programming. They say no words or complaints about any of this stuff. I just write on the board, and all right. And then from there, our CFO of Big Night Entertainment Group, he usually trains around 7:15. And then at 8, there's almost like it's kind of like Smitty's hour, but then other people who work in Card Vault area, people who want to be consistent will come in and train. So I usually spend the morning at my gym in Charlestown. It's a private training facility. So people are like, what's it called? I was like, I don't really know yet. Like, how long have you had it? I'm like, 2 years. It's where we do a lot of like celebrity training, all the people that are coming in, whether through Live Nation or through Big Night, and they want any aspect of health. You know, I've got yoga instructors, breath work, sound bath, like anything that you want for fitness, I've got access to. You want to go to a spa, I run all the fitness for Encore Boston Harbor. You want to do,
you know what's funny? Not to interrupt you. So I stayed there a couple of weeks ago with my wife, and I was just like flipping through the TV, and it had the fitness like workout you can do in the room, and I was like, oh, let's see what they got. Yeah, I click it, and it was the body weight or function or whatever, and I'm like, yo, how the hell did this do? It's him working, giving you a workout in the living room.
He's like, good morning, folks.
Yeah.
So that's a fun thing. And I guess this is kind of how, if there's an important thing that I can give about how I've gotten to the place that I've gotten, is I had an idea about in-room on-demand fitness, because I had talked with Encore, and they had, before pandemic, they had trainers that like kind of like in-house. They weren't utilized all the time. So like, this is kind of a wasteful expense. We want to have access for if people want personal trainers. So now I administer all of that. If it's a small group, whether it's one-on-one, if it's training that I think I would do well in, I will do it. If it's something else, I've sent, breathwork specialists up to do a conference full of people that are in one of the suites. I have yoga specialists that do one-on-one in room. But when we first started there, I was like, I think in-room on-demand fitness, because they're not getting people to go to the gym. Like, if someone's going to go to the gym, they're going to go to the gym. Nothing that you're going to give someone that they have access to is like, okay, now I'll work out. Right. You're going to get the crazies regardless. So like, if it is 10-minute workout or less, recorded in the room, body weight, and in the room that people are in, so it doesn't matter what room you're staying in, we record the workouts in that area. And so I pitched it, and Encore was like, we're not interested. And I was like, you don't get what I'm saying. So I rented a room, brought our production guy, brought our content guy from our creative team, Kyle, over, and we filmed.
Oh, I know Kyle.
You know Kyle?
Yeah.
Alberg?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, he's the best. And so mic'd up, did everything. I went through a full thing, and then I sent it over to him. And they were like, this is really interesting. I see your point here. We'll get back to you. 6 months, nothing. I look over, so Encore is a Win billing, and so Encore and Win in Vegas didn't have anything like this. Well, sure enough, 6 months later, they have my idea down at Win Encore in Vegas, and then I get a message, hey, we actually just got approval to start doing this. We want to bring you in to do these videos. And I was like, oh, Win Encore Vegas, that's their mecca. They don't want anywhere else to have anything that they don't have. So when they pitched it to make it happen, they're like, all right, we're going to do this here. And they did it with some just like, celebrity fitness instructor who's way more attractive than I am. And like, I don't think they provide as good of a quality content. And here's the thing too, our production team, Kyle, made such a better product than what they have. I'm like, let us take over this area. But then, so I, gathered some of my friends, and we were like, hey, you're going to do the dance one. You're going to do yoga. Yep. Larry and I were going to do like the CrossFit. I was actually trying to get it to be named a CrossFit workout. I work for CrossFit on the training team. And it was just hard because of like the NDA that they had to sign or how long it was going to be used for. I was like, no worries, we'll do it. Functional movement or boot camp. But yeah, so anytime people go in there, I'm like, yo, click on that video. Just have that thing looped on there. I want to get those views. I want to get those plays on there.
Melissa, who came in here, the Celtics announcer, she's on one of them too.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
That's sick.
It's hilarious.
Melissa is amazing. So I met her because John Henry's wife, John Henry, the owner of the Sox, his wife wanted to do like a Galentine's Day like workout event. And I'm like, what do you mean by workout? Because if they're going to do like a happy hour afterwards, I don't think they want one of my workouts. They want to we want to do like a choreographed dance cardio thing. So I had some dance cardio people, and Melissa's name got thrown in the hat by the one person that I normally use that wasn't available. And so I was like, hey, are you? And she's like, yep, got it. And just her confidence in that, I'm like, okay. She went on stage. Oh, I knew nothing about her. I knew nothing that she was like on stage host for Celtics, anything about her fitness, her background with Trill Fit and all the stuff that she's done. And she owned every aspect of Big Night Live with this woman and they had like a cocktail hour afterwards. They did like a choreographed dance. I was like, this chick has got it. Yeah. Even though I'm not going to go do dance fitness. I mean, in the past, if I was single, I would go there for like a reason of being like, if like a girl were to drag me to it. But luckily, my girlfriend is into CrossFit and, works at my stride. So we do those things and we both agree on it. But people loved it. And so when that opportunity came out, I was like, Melissa, she's like 100% I'm in. And she was so easy to work with. You're like,
she's dope.
You never know she's a superstar because she is just so humble when you're talking to her. But like, man, she's great. I've got nothing but the best things to say about her.
Yeah, she's awesome.
It's funny because you were saying about like nothing will bring you into the gym if you don't want to do it. The Encore gym is freaking amazing. Yeah, it's a great gym.
I've never stayed there.
No, it's great. But it's funny you were saying about you said something about during the pandemic, and I feel like the pandemic, for all the shit, terrible stuff that happened during the pandemic, the one positive is I feel like a lot of people realized that you don't need to go to a gym to get in a workout. That's when people were buying kettlebells like crazy and all that stuff. And
gym manufacturers is just,
oh my God. They were like, somebody create a new virus. But I think since then, it's almost like a little different evolution where, I don't know, maybe it's hard to, when you're in the ecosystem of something, you feel like everyone's doing it. But I feel like more people are aware of, you don't need to get up and drive 20 minutes and go to a gym and take time out of your day. You could do it right where you are, like with that living room workout.
Yeah. I mean, we did, that was one of the main things that I did for Reebok, is they were like, we need something that's going to catch on, because we needed to be able to promote Reebok footwear and apparel as well, because I was running the gym at the Reebok headquarters. I was working there, but it was before I took over on that. I was working for Austin Malleolo, big CrossFit guy. And then... So we did a 8-minute.
I know Austin too. I'm trying to figure out where I first met him, but I know.
If you've done like a level 1, I mean, he competed at the games. He was my mentor for the CrossFit training team. So on seminar staff, and I worked for him full time at Reebok, and then we partnered and did some different companies together. It's been a wild ride. It's a great dude. Been an awesome mentor for me. But we did, because it was like we had stay at home orders. So I did a class called like Stay at Home Abs. It was like an 8-minute ab workout that was done in like my living room, or it was done in my garage. And unfortunately, at that point in time is when my ex-wife and I were going through a divorce. So then it weren't moved to anywhere abs. So wherever I was is where I was doing it. It was like other people's living rooms. I'd moved to St. Thomas for a little bit. So I was doing it on like yachts. I was doing it on like nice houses. And then I'd be back in Boston. And people were like, how, like, are these pre-recorded? And I'm like, hey, I'm coming live for you from, wherever it was. But the two things that I think that are beneficial is exactly what you said, is that people realize they could get it done anywhere. And it doesn't always have to be I moved the needle significantly today. Right. It can be a check the box scenario. It can be hey, I went out there, I put a weight vest on, I didn't put a weight vest on. I did 7 minutes of burpees and then I went back in there. If people could only understand how much that is going to be a safeguard against, decrepitude and against disease, if you could consistently do that rather than not doing anything. And maybe it's not going to get you back to the fittest you've ever been, but man, you have so much further to fall off. Your health issues can get so much worse beyond your wildest expectations, where if you could just come in and get a little bit done. So yes, on that one. The second piece is that people realize that they have to take responsibility for their health. Now, regardless of all the nonsense that was coming out about mask wearing and social distancing, and then it comes out that people are like, oh, we're just making stuff up. It's like, you think about some of the stuff we were doing at gyms, like, or at restaurants where like, oh, there's a barrier. You can wear your mask when you're standing, but you sit, but you have to have a drink to get an appetizer. And it's like, and everyone's like,
I used to be like, does it float over your head? This is the dumbest fucking thing.
Wild. But the only thing that was unanimous across where everyone can agree upon is, well, if you're healthy, you're going to be at a better situation to deal with this. And I'm like, let's end it at that.
Yeah.
Let's realize that what you are doing with your life is going to have a major effect on everything else. Who relies on you in your life is going to be majorly impacted if you're not taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. It's that classic, like, like you can't fill anyone else's cup unless your cup is full. But like, hey, if you're morbidly obese and you get COVID and you die and you orphan your kids, it sounds pretty dark, but that's the reality for a lot of people. So how about in that morning when you're like, well, I have to make breakfast for my kids. Maybe you wake up 30 minutes early, you throw on a weight vest, you do 7 minutes of burpees in the garage, you do that every day for 3 years, you're going to be in a much better position for them. Don't tell me that it's selfish to prioritize your own health. It's the same reason why when a mask comes down on a plane when everyone needs oxygen, it's not like, hey, save everyone else. It's like, no, you save yourself so that you can save other people.
100%.
And it got to the point where I can scream till I'm blue in the face, but people see me as a different, oh, you've always done fitness, you've always done that stuff. But when it is absolutely thrown directly in front of someone being like, oh, the only thing I can do to really set myself up for success is be fit. Yeah, maybe I should do that a little bit. Yeah. That was where I was like, thank God for that happening, because now people are going to take this stuff seriously because we're fucking sick as a nation.
100%. There's no argument. There's a lot of things where you could have two sides to the argument. I have not heard one compelling argument from anybody who said, you know what? I eat like shit. I don't take care of my body, and I'm better off for it. Nobody.
Actually, fit people are more apt to get COVID. It's like, nope, guess what? No one said that. And what's even wild is that people were saying some crazy shit, but that didn't happen to be, that no one. Hey, if you're really, really fit, you're more likely to get in a car accident. Oh, wait, no, you're more likely to survive a car accident, actually, if you're fit. And it's, so I get all fired up about this stuff.
Oh, no, it's true. Did you hear that story about that person who was running a marathon and just died? That's why I don't work out. Really? What about the person who got diabetes and...
What about the 1 million people that will die of chronic disease, of avoidable chronic diseases from sedentary lifestyle and overconsumption of liquid processed and refined carbohydrates? How about that? You're okay doing that. Right. But now one person dies in a triathlon. You're like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not swimming. Why would I swim? I could die. Oh, I just want to.
Yeah, no, it's true, man. It's hard because it's literally the only thing. Anything in excess could hurt you. This is the only thing. I mean, well, let me take that back. There are some people who have some sort of crazy mental illness where they'll be like, I have to leave my family because I didn't do my burpees today. But
yeah, but that would be in excess.
Yeah,
or that would be where it's like.
But this is like the one thing where it's like, you do it, and trust me, it's all pluses. There's no minuses. 0% minuses. No minuses. 0 minuses.
I believe it.
It's 0.
I would rather dislocate my elbow trying to chase a stupid snatch PR, which granted would be reckless for me to do. I'm not recommending that people need to push the barrier that much. That could be reckless training. I would rather dislocate my elbow doing something wild as far as the fitness side of it than break my leg and have gravy spill out because I tripped down on the sidewalk. Yeah. And guess what? The number one hip replacement isn't from people falling down from box jumps. It's from being too old and literally just trying to walk and move. It's not the number one reason why people have these injuries, even orthopedic injuries, is not from people that are trying to train that much. It's not even a fraction of it. It's from people who are sick trying to live their life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I tore my hamstring. What were you doing? Oh, well, when I rotated to get out of my car, it was a little bit too low. So as I tried to stand, I ripped my hamstring. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I bulging disc in my back because I went to put my sock on because I gained so much weight. I'm morbidly obese. My belly was in the way, and then I had to reach, and I put myself in a bad position. That's what you're going to find more. However, those aren't highlighted quite as much as, someone doing something stupid or reckless in the gym.
Well, a lot of people I think have the mentality of I'll live my life until
they need to.
I'll say 40, right? And then from 40 to whatever, my life is going to consist of going on this medication, doctor's visits, going on this medication for the side effects of this medication, doctor's visits. I have an argument with my sister, who, by the way, is recovering from her second hip replacement. She's only 5 years older than me. I have this argument with her all the time, and she'll say, you know what? At the end of the day, watch, I'm going to outlive you. And I said, you might. I might die at 70, you'll die at 85. But I guarantee you that from now until 70, I'm going to be freaking kicking ass and doing whatever the hell I want to do. And your from now until 85 is going to be saying, okay, so on Tuesday, I got to go see this doctor. I got to get a refill of this medicine. And that's not living.
It's not a way to live.
She won't outlife you. She might outlive you.
100%.
She ain't gonna outlife you.
Do you want to know the one thing I took away from this amazing conversation? It wasn't your determination. It wasn't your perseverance. It wasn't your maturity. Is that you need to own a home in St. Thomas one day.
Oh.
Yo, dude. Seriously. How awesome is it in St. Thomas? I've been thinking about visiting there.
So I love it there. It has a special place in my heart because we started the first CrossFit gym in the Virgin Islands.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
CrossFit
sick.
St. Thomas. In all the Virgin Islands. Now, I've helped and done the CrossFit Level 1 for people in Tortola, and other BVIs. There's one now in...
Did you fly Cape Air when you went down?
St. Croix. No.
I used to work for them.
I'm JetBlue there when I get there. And I've had some pretty incredible experiences with like private clients that I've had. I mean, I've flown private jets down there. I actually flew down there after Hurricane Irma to deliver generators and run security because the airport was unsecured. Everything was blown over. So the guy who ran the FBO was like, hey, do you want to come? Because I also run some private security stuff. But he's like, hey, you want to come fly down with me? Because they're landing a private jet on an airport that's not secured. And there's people that need generators that aren't wealthy that need them to run for their businesses. They need them to run to live. Wow. So it's like, okay, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not a saint for that. I get paid and it's cool. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to help. But St. Thomas is amazing. I still have an island family down there, people I can call at any point in time that do all aspects of work. I mean, we would run our classes in the gym, and there's one time I remember specifically, there's 4 people in the gym. One person was a Zumba instructor. One person was a customs agent. One person drove boats for a living. The other person was a drug dealer. All 4 of them in class, hanging out. And it wasn't like, we're talking about small-time drug dealer, not the kilos of cocaine that are getting delivered, which the other guys would care about. But it was like we had this land of misfit toys, of transplants from the States, of locals that were born and raised there. And it was like the coolest community. And when I first got there, people were like, oh, you'll get island fever. Like the island's too small. Like everywhere you go, you like know or see someone. And it became the coolest thing in the world. You walk in anywhere, you're getting a free coffee. You walk in here, oh, you're getting a free shot. Oh, you walk in here, beers are on us. Here's the bucket. Here's this stuff. And it was like, we had this community that was amazing. Then take that on top of being on a tropical island. And every Sunday is like boat day where you go to the BVIs, you go to Yost Van Dyke. And it's like, everyone wants the CrossFit crew. Come on, right, whose boat are you coming on? You're coming on here. It was like, I didn't have 2 dimes to rub together when I was down there. I paid my rent, which was in Chris Irwin's house. And, I could barely afford like my vehicle. And, I'd end up getting a scooter, but like I was so happy. I was so fulfilled because the people down there were just unbelievably generous and they were my family. And all the things that you can do down there, like it is. I was just down there a couple months ago. I actually brought my girlfriend and we did a 10-year wedding anniversary celebration in Tortola. So we went to St. Thomas, worked out in the morning at the CrossFit gym there, walked the hill all the way up to the top. There's like a big steep hill, came back down, went boating over there, did non-fitness things for quite some time, just sitting in the pool drinking beers. But we woke up, went to the CrossFit gym in Tortola. Both the owners I did their CrossFit Level 1 for. And it was like, you have this community that is, we should all go down there. Let's do a trip. I'm sorry, you asked about St. Thomas. I'm talking about my experience down there. It is.
And Ramiro will pay for it all.
Amazing. All right, I'm in.
Myself.
Sold.
Yeah. Okay. Couple questions. Final questions. What's something you wish you were better at?
A lot of things. The list is long. It's hard if it's one thing. I wish I was better at calling my sister.
Okay.
She's maybe the sweetest and been the most proud person of me and always supported me even though when I shouldn't have been supported. And I try to call her often, but every time I talk to her, it's not a pain in the ass. I just need to do it more because she's like the best person in the world and has always like been there for me when she shouldn't have.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Favorite quote?
Ooh, this is a new one. And I'm not a super big Alex Hormozy fan. I like a lot of the work he's done. I think he's a little bit too far on the spectrum where he's like, live on your friends' couches, don't have any expenses, then you'll be a millionaire in this time. And you're like, well, I'm more of like a quality of life kind of guy. But he said something that was really important to me after I had gone through my divorce and I'd hurt a lot of people and I had put my reputation, the things that I said on the line. And it wasn't that I was trying to prove myself to other people. I was trying to prove myself to myself. And I wanted it to just be back to the way things were. And I always had an excuse for things. Confidence is not gained by shouting affirmations in the mirror. It is gained by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. And once I heard that, it was, I can't convince anyone that my side of things or any of that stuff. All I can do is be the best dad I've ever been. I can do everything with integrity, and I can live my life in the way that I want to be seen, and it starts today. And then after a week of it, then I have a week's worth, and that's all my evidence. And then after 5 years, I'm not worried about convincing anyone anymore because all I have is this is who I am and this is how I am rather than saying, oh, you're great. You're still a great person. You can still do this. You still have all this stuff. So that was a big one for me.
That one's going to be coming down the pipeline soon I have a little chain of people that I send a little motivational text to every morning and I send little quotes. Moose is on the list. Get ready for that one.
I was going to say.
Act like it's the first time you heard it. Okay, if you could time travel, are you going back in time or are you going forward in time? And what do you want to see?
Oof. I have to say back in time because I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life right now. And I want to live every moment. I don't want to know what's a year from now, 2 years from now. Man, it's like the fact that we're doomed here on Earth and I could die driving my car, leaving this parking garage is, I don't know, my perspective right now is I couldn't be happier with everything going on. So I think I would go back in time. And what I would do is if I could kind of butterfly effect some things, I would just thank people in the moment. Because now, like, you know, I've had conversations with my high school football coach who taught us more about family and discipline than I could ever imagine, but I didn't learn it in the moment. Afterwards, when I realized it, I'm like, this is what he was teaching me. This is how much better my life could have been. My dad teaching me about doing the right things no matter who's looking. My mom having unconditional love for me. My brother for being there to support me, even though it's such a shithead and it impacted his world. You know, go back to the coaches who did those things for me and be like, hey, this is like, keep doing this. Because eventually, you know, as I go through my life of ups and downs and nonsense, like I'm going to get to a point where I'm really happy. I'm confident in what I've done, and it's all come from those people. So I would go back and I would thank people.
A skill that you wish you could have immediately.
Singing. Wish I could sing.
Boom.
Yeah. Easy.
Be good.
That's another one too. It wins the ladies over.
I know.
No ladies like, oh, I wish he didn't know how to sing.
Oh, if I had like a Chris Brown voice, I would just sing that like "With You" song all the time.
Yeah.
Or just like imagine just like okay, here's another question, I guess. Would you rather, and we'll take Usher and Chris Brown. Okay. Would you rather be able to sing like them or dance like them?
Sing like them.
I'm gonna say sing because I think the dancing you could learn.
Yeah, but not at that level.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be be a good singer, but you still can hit them CB high notes.
I'm still gonna say sing because they can sing well. There's nothing worse than someone who thinks they can sing well but they can't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point.
Dude, I went on a date with a girl one time. This was between marriages.
This makes me uncomfortable. I'm crawling in my skin knowing what you're gonna say.
Are you ready for this? So we're driving to the restaurant, and
What song was it?
it was a Rihanna song. It was. Hold on a second.
I'm honestly have goosebumps right now.
Unfaithful?
No, it was.
One of those really deep, sad ones.
It was it Rude Boy? I forget. It was one where she like hits like a random kind of like a high note, and the song was playing, and all of a sudden the girl turned up the volume a little bit. Unfortunately, not enough because her volume was like She was so bad.
And you turned the car right around.
Dude, I was like, and listen, in my experience, I've had a lot of experiences where people will come up to me and be like, yo, I got a song. And they throw freaking headphones on me and I'm listening to it with them. And I'm kind of doing one of these and it's the fucking worst song I ever heard in my life. But I have to kind of give them a little smile until the song's done. There was never a more uncomfortable moment than being in a car with that girl while she's singing that song in the worst way possible, waiting for her to be done. And the whole time I'm like, am I supposed to say that was good? I don't understand. Like, what? I didn't say anything. I just kept it moving. Thank God she didn't ask me. Thank God she didn't ask me. It was so bad.
I wish I could explain to you how uncomfortable I am from that story. If I were in, I just...
I don't know what I would have done.
I stayed quiet. There's not many times in my life where I've like stayed quiet because I'm like, I don't know how to respond to this. I didn't know. And I was like, just please don't ask. And luckily she didn't ask. I think she wanted me to say something. So there was a little bit of an awkward silence there, but
better than what could have been.
It was so bad.
And what's a great point about that is that you can be a bad dancer and it's still it's good. You know, as long as you don't like think you're like the best dancer in the world and hitting it, but like if you're a bad dancer and you can still move around, it's funny.
Yeah,
and it's like
you're like, oh, he's having a good time.
But if someone just starts like singing,
secondhand embarrassment.
No, yeah, you're right. It's when they think.
Yeah,
it's like they get serious.
She thought she
for a minute,
was
like,
good.
Yeah, don't make me sing.
She didn't.
Grab the mic at karaoke.
So bad. It was.
All right, so we got to go to St. Thomas and we got to do a karaoke night. I think this is what this conversation just unfolded.
I think so. All right. Is there anything I didn't ask you? I should have.
I mean, I didn't. Like we said, we didn't know. We were just gonna have a conversation. I always want to give a shout out right now to my business partners Ed and Randy, who run Big Night Entertainment Group.
Yep.
People don't really realize. People think, oh, Big Night Entertainment Group, is that Big Night Live? They don't realize that there's a lot of different hospitality venues that are all around the city, and they have fully invested into me and the fitness side of things. And it's really cool, the celebrity side of it, which most people, that's usually when people want me on a podcast. They want to talk about like touring with Burt Kreischer, or what was Young Gravy like, or, you know, how I was hanging out with Diplo. And it's like, that stuff's cool, but they have allowed me an area to highlight other trainers in our venues, in our actual gym space, but also get anyone and everyone who wants to work out started and moving in the right direction. And it's not for them, hey, this is this big money grab. Like, they are fully trusting in that. So with everything we do with Big Night Fitness, you guys can go on like bignightfitness.com to check it out. But not a lot of it is like, hey, we're going to make a bunch of money from this. Like, a lot of it is free events. It's getting people moving. It's my way to give back. It's selfish because I feel good when people change the quality of their life for the better. I love that. But just a shout out to those guys that allow me to come midday to record a podcast and trust me to do the right thing.
I know Randy from his freaking radio days. Back when he was Maddie's like a stunt guy from back in the day. You probably weren't even alive then.
Like an intern, and then like followed like the iHeart stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if we talk about other radio hosts, but I started training Billy Costa.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do we love him? Do we hate him here? I don't know.
I know Billy. I not worked with him. I mean, we were in the same company for years. He helped me one time. Because if you look at Billy now, like you kind of think of like, you think he's kind of like a bougie dude. I've never seen him more excited than the time I locked myself out of my car. I was going to leave work. I locked myself out of my car. He happened to be walking out to leave too. And he goes, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I locked myself out of my fucking car. I got to call AAA." And he goes, "No, I haven't done this in years." He got so excited. I don't remember if he got it from his car or if he ran inside. He ended up getting a coat hanger. He used to to have fun back in the day.
Yeah.
He was like, "This brings me back to my days in Cambridge." Yeah.
He's hilarious.
I have a funny thing with his son. His son's friends with like my sister and her friends.
Which one?
Chris.
I trained Chris as well.
Oh, you trained Chris? Yeah. So he's friends with and I almost worked for Chris before we started working together. And I was like in an in-between, and like my sister was just like, "Oh, well, just like DM him, say you know me, like me and him are friends." And I was gonna work for Card Vault. This is when he had one place open, and we were on Zoom. And I told him what I wanted to do. He's like, "I think that sounds great. I don't have that." And he goes, "I mean, maybe later if you want to get a job at one of the stores for now." And he's like, "Think about it." And then 24 hours later, I started working here, and I was like, "Oh." So every time I think of Chris, I see a Chris, I'm like, that was a fun catalyst moment. Imagine I worked at Card Vault. Just be making up stuff. Grab this Derek Jeter 1990 something.
Are you like a card person?
No, hell
They just found a freaking Babe Ruth rookie card. Some dude in Danvers at a yard sale.
Is that important?
Babe Ruth. You've heard the name Babe
I know
Ruth.
Babe Ruth, yeah. But I don't know like a rookie card. How
Rookie
like
means like
his-
the first card,
The
like
Great
his first-
Bambino.
Yeah,
the
his
first season
plus
as a
the clout.
baseball player.
oh, so it's like a lot of money.
Yeah, man.
I don't know anything. That's why I didn't work at Card Vault. I don't know anything about sports cards.
Yeah.
If once you figure out how much people are paying for these cards, and we're not talking just sports cards, we're talking Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
when
I know
you-
about
when you get
Pokemon
into like the hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars people paying for cards, you're like, okay, maybe my life isn't that significant.
It's crazy. Like I went through a little baseball card stage when I was younger, just getting them so bad that one time my friends and I found a wallet on the ground with cash in it. We literally saw the guy. I'm not sure it was him. I'm pretty sure it was him.
Allegedly.
You know, just by deductive reasoning, I'm like, I feel like it's that guy who dropped his wallet. I opened it up. I had a ton of cash in it. And I said, let's go to the baseball card store and buy baseball cards. And we did. Listen, I wasn't always the coolest dude.
That was yeah.
But yes, that's how big I was into baseball cards. Connor, thank you for coming on, my friend.
Thank you guys
was
for
fun.
having me. I appreciate it.